So thank you for that kind introduction. It's interesting, as I listen to that, it's clear that we've been busy, and we have met with so many people, and we also have to keep ourselves focused on outcomes. And in that regard, I'm thrilled to be with NADEC today, and a special counsel to the District Export Council. A special thank you. We have to put points on the board. You know, that means we have to help businesses export, and hopefully, you know, some months from now, if Diane introduces me again, we'll be able to say we've gone from X to Y in exports, we've gone from X to Y in jobs, and really shown that together, working in partnership with you, we can empower entrepreneurs to innovate and help American businesses to compete at home and abroad. I would say that I was drawn to the Commerce Department, even though I loved my job as governor, because this is, I think, going to be an incredibly important time for the Department of Commerce as we build back after the pandemic. Millions of Americans are still without a job. Millions of American women have dropped out of the workforce, and we have an awful lot of work to do to make sure that they have the support necessary to get back into the workforce. And COVID has wreaked havoc in our global supply chains across industries. I've been talking a lot about semiconductors, but it isn't just semiconductors. It's semiconductors, cars, lumber, across the board. So, you know, to that point, the Commerce Department, working in partnership with you all, has its work cut out for us. And I hope and predict that over the coming years, we're going to do some of our best work yet, because our mission is, and the tools we have and the team we have is totally consistent with what the American economy needs now as we build back. And as the president says, as we build back better. Now, in that, exports will be an absolutely critical part of the work that we do. I don't need to tell all of you, but it is a fact. The data show consistently that businesses that export are less likely to close, more likely to earn higher revenues, more likely to create jobs, and more likely to pay higher wages. And we also know, though, that especially small businesses, women-owned and women-run businesses, minority-owned and run businesses, still don't do their fair share of exporting. And so for that reason, I am particularly committed to working with you to help those businesses and all businesses really rejuvenate their export practices with our support as we build back after the pandemic. And so in that regard, we are putting together plans to really lean into trade promotion and export promotion. And we are focused in a few key areas. The first is equitable economic growth by eliminating barriers and doubling support for underserved communities and SMEs. We are going to really help those businesses. As you heard yesterday, the North Texas DEC and our commercial service staff launched an event series to educate over 1,800 female business executives about trade expansion with Canada and Mexico. That is the first of what I hope will be many similar announcements. Second priority, although not second in importance, is travel and tourism. Again, I don't have to tell any of you how disproportionately harmed the travel and tourism industry was during COVID. All of last year, I was the governor of the Ocean State, and it's so heartbreaking, really, to see travel and tourism industry companies closed, out of business, or barely surviving. So we are investing $750 million to help the industry get back on its feet and millions of Americans back to work. And we are really putting together some robust plans around how to help travel and tourism industry get back on path in partnership, public-private partnership with those companies. And then finally, we're creating a national export strategy. For the first time, Since 2016, the strategy will help American businesses reach customers in fast-growing markets abroad. It will help generate demand for job creation and position our economy for a strong recovery. And as part of that process, I will ask President Biden to appoint members to the President's Export Council to ensure that we have private sector input. And we will be doing a virtual listening tour of small and medium-sized businesses, and the DECs will play a critical role in organizing small business roundtables as part of that listening tour, which leads me to an important point that I'd like to emphasize this afternoon. The Department of Commerce will do everything we can to ensure American goods and services succeed in the global market. Promote, level the playing field, do everything we can, but we can't do it alone. As I've said several times, it requires partnership with private sector partners, which means each and every one of you to get the job done. It's exactly what I did as governor. And prior to that, I spent 11 years in the private sector. We need to work in partnership with small businesses, startups, entrepreneurs, innovators, and I'm asking you for your help in bringing new members into the export ecosystem. And as you do it, I'm asking you to keep inclusivity and diversity foremost in your mind, which means diversity of industries, thinking about climate change solutions, thinking about women, thinking about minority-owned businesses. Finally, I just want to announce that in a few days, next week, on June 7th to 11th, the week after next, I'll be hosting the Select USA Investment Summit, showcasing a wide range of investment opportunities across America. And I would love for all of you to attend and for you to spread the word. Although it's virtual, maybe won't be as fun as in person, we're hopeful that the virtual format enables everybody to come without the expense of travel. So June 7th to 11th, Select USA Investment Summit. I personally think it's a terrific timing for this event as we're getting back on our feet and reopening post-pandemic to really come together and figure out ways to have partnerships that'll boost investment in our country. So I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your partnership, and I'm pleased to take your questions.
Fantastic, Madam Secretary. That was wonderful. Equitable economic growth. SMEs, of course, are our sweet spot. So that's perfect for all of us. Travel and tourism, absolutely. National export strategy, very excited to be once again developing a national export strategy. And yes, thank you for the plug for Select USA. And we're absolutely delighted that you're going to be leading those multiple day events. We do have two questions teed up for you, ma'am. The first is Clem Schrader from our North Carolina deck. Over to Clem.
You're on mute, Clem.
Clem, you're on mute.
Let me start over. Welcome, Madam Secretary. Delighted to have you with us. I have been a member of the North Carolina District Export Council for many years. I'm a past chair, and I worked for 50 plus years in the international trade area, primarily in global logistics and banking. And I have a two-pronged question for you, although I think you have already touched on both of them. My question is, what plans are in place or contemplated to boost U.S. exports given the downturn? And what are the plans to increase export readiness of small U.S. companies once the global economy begins to improve?
Thank you, Clem, for your question. I would say, first, let me say, as I have already said, exports will play a major role in our economic recovery. And I'm an optimistic person by nature. I'd like to use the pandemic as an opportunity to develop new strategies to reach out to particularly smaller and medium-sized companies who may not export now or may not export much now, to consider an export strategy as a new component of their business as they quote unquote build back better and come back after the pandemic. Most businesses, in fact, every business I know, large and small, is using the pandemic to really pause and reevaluate their entire business. Will they allow people to work from home? How are they going to shrink their real estate footprint? Just so many questions. And I would like to use this as an opportunity to say, pause and reflect on your export strategy. Is it robust enough? And I would like to have the Commerce Department and the USIACs and the working with you, the district export councils, our foreign commercial service, to really lean into this moment to see if we can put some goals around how we're going to increase our exports, increase the number of clients that we deal with, and use this moment of reflection so that we come out the other end with many more American companies exporting and across industries. One thing that I am very interested to think more about is exporting our services, not just our goods. I think that there are so many services, particularly in, say, healthcare or IT-enabled services, where American companies are the best in the world and they don't export very much. So how do we think about, exporting and using what we've learned in the pandemic to do that?
Fantastic. Thank you, Madam
Thank you very much.
Secretary. Thank you, Clem. Okay, over to Mostanser Verk from the East Michigan DEC. Mostanser?
Hello, Madam Secretary, and good afternoon. It's so good to have you with us. And I am Mostanser Verk, and my company is called Epic Translations, and we offer translation services to U.S. companies that export to make it easier for them to communicate and do business in any country in the world. I've got many clients who are interested in China as a market for their products and services, but some of them are concerned and worried about having to do business in China. So my question to you is, would you please share with us why we are viewing China as a threat as opposed to an opportunity?
So good afternoon. And I would say it's both. If we're honest, it's both a threat and an opportunity. So on the opportunity side, last year, U.S. firms benefited from $125 billion in goods exported to China. So that's the good news. And I expect and hope that that number will increase. And that's our job. We will help companies increase their exports, including to China. It's a fast growing economy, largest middle class in the world, many more people entering the middle class than in any other country in the world every year. And that's an opportunity that American companies should be able to access. And we will absolutely support that and promote that. Having said that, China's also a threat. China's actions have been, anti-competitive to the United States. They engage in, they steal our IP, they manipulate their currency to make it impossible for us to compete with them. They flood our market with cheap goods. They're trying to get a backdoor into our telecommunications networks in ways that compromise our national security, and on and on and on. So I think we would be foolish to think otherwise. They're not our friend. It's the strategic competition of our lifetimes. So I think it's a challenge, honestly, truthfully. We've never experienced anything like this. This isn't the Cold War like some of us grew up with. We cannot detach ourselves from China. We don't want to. Like you said, there's too much business to be done. On the flip side, the threat is real and we have to be cognizant of that.
All right, I appreciate the feedback. Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to Clem. Thank you to Mostanser. Madam Secretary, thank you very much for taking the time with NADEC. We really appreciate your commitment, your knowledge of the challenges that we have. And please know that you have the full support of the ITA, all of the colleagues, as well, of course, as NADEC today. So thank you, ma'am. And over to Sean.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Diane, thank you for passing it back to me. It's reassuring to hear those words of the policies and actions that we're going to take at the federal level. Of course, we at the DECs also have that as a priority. And just by your attendance today, you're showing that you're working in that direction, and we appreciate it.